Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Post. I'm Sid Rosenberg for OpenSports.com and the National Football Post. Week 14 is in the books, and hopefully you're still alive in your fantasy playoffs with a championship in the crosshairs. Let's welcome in my main man, Joe Fortenbaugh, the great fantasy expert at NFPost.com. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great, and may I say you look excellent in Eagles green. It really brings out your eyes.
How do I say this nicely? Eat me!
Hey, you guys got to play better defense. You don't want to wear the jersey, play better defense.
I understand. Well, not really me. I mean, I wasn't out there, but I understand my Giants did not play good defense, and we'll see what happens down the road. I like the Giants to beat the Redskins next Monday. Dallas loses to New Orleans, and the next thing you know, the Eagles may win the NFC East, but the Giants may make the playoffs anyway. But I did lose the bet, and here I am wearing your Eagle jersey today, and I feel like a terrorist.
You know what? You're a man of your word, and I admire that. And at the same time, if you guys knock out the Cowboys and end up getting that last wild card spot, you could be at Lincoln Financial Field playing Philadelphia in the first round of the playoffs. So another bet could be coming.
Ew. Anyway, let's talk some fantasy football here, Joe. Some monster performances this past week. Brandon Marshall, 21 catches. Andre Johnson, Chris Johnson. Now you're going to tell us who makes the best and worst plays going forward. Let's start out with the quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers had an off day on Sunday for the Packers. You say no worries as long as it didn't cost you a playoff victory.
No, if you're still going, you can ride Rodgers down the stretch here. This was just his first game this past weekend that he did not throw a touchdown pass in a game all season long. Very favorable schedule down the stretch. He's at Pittsburgh this weekend, which will raise some eyebrows. But if Troy Polamalu doesn't play, still very favorable for Rodgers in the pack. Moving forward from there, Seattle and Arizona, two excellent fantasy pass defenses. They're giving up a ton of points to opposing quarterbacks each week. Rodgers should be able to light them up down the stretch as the Packers continue to play for better playoff position.
Joe, I know you're also high on Matt Schaub of the Houston Texans, and fresh off the win over the Cardinals last night, Alex Smith of San Francisco.
Both excellent plays down the stretch. Matt Schaub has a very favorable schedule. He's going to be moving forward with St. Louis this weekend and then Miami the following week. Miami's played some tough defenses, but both St. Louis and Miami rank in the bottom 10 in fantasy pass defense against opposing fantasy quarterbacks this year. So Matt Schaub's going to be very reliable for you in weeks 15 and 16. New England in week 17 could be a little iffy, still a good play. Alex Smith, great schedule down the stretch. He's been finding the end zone almost every week, 2 touchdowns on Monday Night Football. Now he moves forward with a schedule where he's going to be at Philadelphia this week. They were lit up by Eli Manning, who threw for just under 400 yards and 3 touchdowns last weekend. And then moving forward from that, he's got Detroit and St. Louis. It couldn't be any better for Alex Smith. If you need a quarterback, he could be the guy to ride to a championship.
All right, Joe. Cowboy quarterback Tony Romo's had some nice fantasy output lately, but you're not sold on his matchups the rest of the year. You can say the same for Bengal quarterback Carson Palmer.
It's all starting to unravel in Dallas, and I'm not going to lie, I absolutely love it, and I will pile on. Romo had a really rough outing this past weekend against San Diego, and it's only going to get worse. He's going to hit the road this weekend to take on New Orleans, and then he's going to travel to Washington to take on the Redskins. Last time they played the Redskins, they hosted them. It was a 7-6 win for Dallas. Washington and New Orleans both rank in the top 6 in fantasy pass defense against quarterbacks in fantasy football leagues this year. So Romo's going to have a tough run. Then he's going to be looking at the Eagles in week 17. He could bounce back. But if you don't have a championship in week 17, that's going to be irrelevant. Carson Palmer, on the other hand, has been very much struggling lately. Less than 100 yards passing against Minnesota. He did connect on a touchdown, but has very few touchdowns the past few weeks. They're not throwing nearly enough with the Cincinnati Bengals. And moving forward, San Diego this weekend, and then week 17, a disaster of a game at the New York Jets, the best fantasy pass defense in the league this year with Darrelle Revis. Good news for Palmer owners. He's a considerable start in week 16 when the Bengals will play the Kansas City Chiefs. Great matchup for him there. Outside of that, you got to send him to the bench.
All right, we're going to save running backs and receivers for Thursday, Joe. Let's hit on the tight ends today. I know you like Vernon Davis of San Francisco. He's been dominant, but you're also liking Jeremy Shockey of the New Orleans Saints and Vicente Shenko in Minnesota.
Shenko and Vernon Davis are basically no-brainers. If you've got them, you love them. They've been playing well every week. Keep it in the lineup and feel comfortable about it. Shockey's a little bit of a sleeper you're going to want to keep your eye on. Favorable schedule down the stretch for New Orleans. Dallas has been beaten by tight ends this year, and New Orleans is still looking at some divisional games with Tampa Bay remaining on the schedule. Very favorable for Shockey. If you're looking for a guy on waivers, he could step in nicely for you.
Now, I know you've been down on Tony Romo here the next couple of weeks. He talked about the matchups. I guess that's why you're probably also down on his starting tight end, Jason Witten. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the opposing defenses that Dallas is going to be facing haven't just been good against quarterbacks. They've been very good against tight ends. New Orleans last week was lit up through the air, but they were very good against Tony Gonzalez, one of the premier pass-catching tight ends in the league. In addition, the Washington Redskins, who Romo will be facing in 2 weeks, have been excellent against opposing tight ends this year. So Witten could find some struggles down the stretch. He had been hot a few weeks leading into this upcoming stretch down the remaining part of the schedule, but he's not going to be too reliable. You might want to start looking for a better, more reliable option with better matchups.
As always, Joe, terrific job. We're going to see you again on Thursday for more fantasy coverage right here on the Fantasy Football Post. And I hope you enjoyed this because I've hated every second of it.
It was outstanding for me. And make sure you keep that jersey clean, Sid. I don't want to see that thing hitting the ground.
I'm setting it on fire as soon as I walk out of the studio. Thank you, Joe. You're great.
Thanks, Sid. I'll talk to you soon.
You got it. Remember, you can also follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Fortenbaugh for more great fantasy updates and, of course, read his great writing each and every day at thenfpost.com. For Joe Fortenbaugh, I'm Sid Rosenberg. Good luck in your fantasy games. We'll see you again coming up right here on Thursday. See you next time.